Buying groceries on a budget. Have you ever stood in a grocery store staring at your nearly empty wallet while your stomach growls loudly enough to make the person in the next aisle look over? Well, you're about to discover how Sarah turned this exact nightmare situation into a life-changing adventure. This story will not only entertain you, but also teach you valuable English vocabulary and budget shopping skills that could save you hundreds of dollars every month. Subscribe to Story-Driven English now so you never miss our weekly stories that make learning English both fun and practical. Sarah Walker stared at her bank account balance on her phone and sighed. $78.43. That was all she had left to last for the next 2 weeks until her next paycheck. After paying rent and bills for her small apartment, there wasn't much left. She needed to buy groceries, and she had no idea how to make such a small amount of money stretch that far. I guess I'll be eating nothing but instant noodles again, she muttered to herself as she grabbed her reusable shopping bags and headed out the door. The autumn air was crisp, and fallen leaves crunched beneath her feet as she walked the 3 blocks to Save Mart, the local grocery store. As Sarah entered the brightly lit store, she pulled out her phone again and opened the Notes app. She began typing a quick list: eggs, bread, milk, some vegetables, maybe chicken if it was on sale. The basics. She grabbed a shopping cart and headed toward the produce section, trying to ignore the delicious smells coming from the bakery. Fresh. "Donuts! Get your fresh donuts!" called a cheerful employee, offering samples on a tray. Sarah's stomach growled loudly, but she forced herself to look away. No unnecessary spending today. As she examined the prices of vegetables, her heart sank. Everything seemed more expensive than she remembered. A single bell pepper was $1.50, and a small bag of salad was nearly $4. At this rate, her money would be gone before she filled half her cart. "Ridiculous, isn't it?" said a voice beside her. Sarah turned to see an elderly woman with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a purple cardigan with cats embroidered on the pockets and had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. "I remember when $1 could buy groceries for a week," the woman continued. "Now it barely buys a single vegetable." Sarah nodded, picking up a cucumber and putting it back down when she saw the price. $2.29 for 1 cucumber? It's insane, Mike. "Eleanor, by the way," the woman said, extending her hand. "And you look exactly like I did 50 years ago when I was a young woman trying to make ends meet." "I'm Sarah," she replied, shaking Eleanor's hand. "And yes, I'm definitely struggling with my grocery budget right now." Eleanor looked at Sarah's nearly empty cart, and then at her worried expression. "Would you like some advice? I've been shopping on a tight budget for decades. My husband passed away 10 years ago, and I've been living on a fixed income ever since." Sarah hesitated. She was in a hurry, but she desperately needed help. "I'd really appreciate that, actually." "First rule," Eleanor said, taking the cucumber from Sarah's hand and putting it back. "Never buy produce that's out of season. It's always more expensive. Look at these carrots instead. Only 89 cents for a pound, and they last forever in the fridge." Sarah grabbed a bag of carrots and placed them in her cart. "Second rule," Eleanor continued as they moved through the produce section. "Always check the reduced section. Perfectly good fruits and vegetables that are just slightly imperfect or need to be used soon." She led Sarah to a corner of the produce section that Sarah had never noticed before. There were bags of slightly bruised apples, ripe bananas, and vegetables that didn't look perfect, but were still perfectly edible, all at half price or less. "These bananas are perfect for baking," Eleanor said, placing a bunch in Sarah's cart. "You can make banana bread or freeze them for smoothies." As they continued shopping, Eleanor shared more wisdom. Buying whole chickens instead of expensive boneless chicken breasts, checking unit prices to compare value, and using the store's loyalty card for extra discounts. "The key is planning," Eleanor explained as they reached the dairy section. "Never go shopping without a meal plan and a list, and never shop when you're hungry. That's when impulse buys happen." Sarah was taking mental notes of everything Eleanor said. This was information she had never learned growing up. Her parents had always struggled with money too, and they had never taught her how to shop efficiently. "Do you have a smartphone?" Eleanor asked suddenly. Sarah nodded, somewhat surprised by the question. "Good. Download these grocery store apps," Eleanor said, pulling out her own phone, which was protected by a case covered in more embroidered cats. "They have digital coupons and weekly sales. I save at least 20% on my groceries every week using these." Sarah raised her eyebrows, impressed that this elderly woman was so tech-savvy. "I wouldn't have thought to look for grocery store apps," Eleanor chuckled. "Just because I'm old doesn't mean I can't learn new tricks. My grandson taught me all about apps, and now I teach all my friends at the senior center." By the time they reached the checkout, Sarah's cart contained a surprising amount of food. Rice, beans, frozen vegetables, a whole chicken, eggs, milk, bread, and even some fruit, all for much less than she would have spent on her own. "Thank you so much, Eleanor," Sarah said sincerely. "You've been incredibly helpful." "It was my pleasure, dear," Eleanor replied. "Shopping alone gets boring anyway. Maybe we could do this again sometime?" Sarah smiled. "I'd really like that." They exchanged phone numbers, and as Sarah walked home, with her bags of groceries, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Not only had she spent less than $50 and had enough food for 2 weeks, but she had also made a new friend. Over the next few months, Sarah and Eleanor developed a routine of shopping together every other weekend. Eleanor continued to share her wisdom about budget shopping, and Sarah introduced Eleanor to new recipes she found online. "My grandson would be impressed with how tech-savvy you're making me," Eleanor said one day, as Sarah showed her how to follow food bloggers on Instagram for cheap recipe ideas. Sarah had learned to make her own bread, which saved her several dollars each week. She became an expert at transforming a single whole chicken into multiple meals. Roast chicken the first night, chicken sandwiches the next day, and finally chicken soup from the bones and leftover bits. One Saturday in early December, as they were shopping together, Eleanor seemed quieter than usual. "Is everything okay?" Sarah asked as they compared prices on different brands of canned tomatoes. Eleanor sighed. "My grandson Thomas is coming to visit for the holidays. He lives in Boston now, working at some fancy tech company. I haven't seen him in almost 2 years." "That's wonderful," Sarah exclaimed. "You must be excited." "I am, but—" Eleanor hesitated. "He's bringing his girlfriend to meet me for the first time, and I want to make a nice holiday meal. But on my budget, I'm not sure how to make it special." Sarah thought for a moment, then smiled. "I have an idea. Let's plan a fantastic holiday." Meal together on a budget. Between your experience and my internet research skills, we can make it happen. Eleanor's face brightened. You'd help me with that? Of course. You've helped me so much. It's the least I can do. For the next 2 weeks, they planned meticulously. They bought ingredients gradually when they found them on sale. Sarah discovered a local bakery that sold day-old bread at half price, perfect for making stuffing. Eleanor knew a butcher who offered discounts to regular customers, and she negotiated a good price on a small turkey. The day before Thomas and his girlfriend were due to arrive, Sarah helped Eleanor prepare as much as possible in advance. They made cranberry sauce from discounted berries, prepared a vegetable casserole with seasonal produce, and baked homemade dinner rolls that cost a fraction of store-bought ones. Would you like to join us for dinner tomorrow? Eleanor asked, as they put the finishing touches on a pumpkin pie made from scratch. Sarah was surprised by the invitation. Oh, I couldn't impose on your family time. Nonsense, Eleanor insisted. You're practically family now. Besides, I've told Thomas all about you, and he's eager to meet the young woman who's been keeping his grandmother so busy. The next day, Sarah arrived at Eleanor's small house with a homemade centerpiece she had created from pine cones, branches, and candles. All things she had collected for free from the park, and items she already owned. When Thomas and his girlfriend, Lily, arrived, Sarah was struck by how much he resembled a younger male version of Eleanor, right down to the kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. So you're the famous Sarah, he said, shaking her hand warmly. Grandma talks about you all the time on our video calls. She says you're a budget shopping genius. Sarah laughed. I just follow her advice. She's the real genius. The dinner was a huge success. Thomas and Lily couldn't believe that such a feast had been prepared on Eleanor's limited budget. You should start a YouTube channel or something, Grandma, Thomas suggested as he helped himself to another serving of mashed potatoes. Budget cooking for seniors, you'd be a hit. Eleanor chuckled. Oh, I don't know about that, but Sarah could do it. She's young and knows all about that internet stuff. Sarah paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. It was an interesting idea. She had been documenting all of Eleanor's tips in a notebook, along with her own discoveries about budget shopping and cooking. You know, Lily said thoughtfully, that's actually not a bad idea. I work in marketing, and there's definitely an audience for budget cooking content, especially now with inflation affecting food prices. The conversation moved on, but the idea stuck with Sarah. After the holidays, as she was organizing her notebook of budget shopping tips, she decided to take the plunge. She started a simple blog called Budget Bites, where she shared what she had learned from Eleanor, along with her own experiences. To her surprise, the blog quickly gained followers. People were struggling with grocery budgets everywhere, and they were hungry for practical advice. Within a few months, a small cooking website asked to feature one of her articles, which brought even more traffic to her blog. You're becoming famous, Eleanor said proudly one day as they were shopping. I told my friends at the senior center about your blog, and now they're all reading it. Sarah smiled. I couldn't have done it without you. Actually, I was wondering if you'd like to collaborate with me on something new. I'm thinking of starting a YouTube channel to go along with the blog, and I'd love for you to appear in some videos. Eleanor's eyes widened. Me? On YouTube? What would I even say? Just be yourself and share your wisdom like you did with me that first day we met, Sarah said. People could really benefit from your experience. After some convincing, Eleanor agreed. Their first video, titled Grocery Shopping Secrets from a Depression-Era Grandma, went viral almost overnight. Viewers loved Eleanor's no-nonsense approach and practical tips. Comments poured in from people thanking them for sharing such valuable information. As their channel grew, Sarah was able to monetize the videos. She split the earnings with Eleanor, which provided both of them with some extra income. For Sarah, it meant she no longer had to worry about her grocery budget. For Eleanor, it meant she could occasionally splurge on special treats or gifts for her grandson. 1 year after their chance meeting in the produce section, Sarah received an email from a publishing company interested in turning their budget, shopping and cooking advice into a book. "Can you believe it?" Sarah said excitedly, as she showed Eleanor the email on her phone. They were sitting in Eleanor's living room, planning their content calendar for the next month. "They're offering us an advance and everything." Eleanor shook her head in amazement. "When I stopped to talk to you that day, I was just being friendly. I had no idea it would lead to all this." "That's the thing about budgeting," Sarah said with a smile. "Sometimes the smallest investments yield the biggest returns." As they sat together planning their book, Sarah reflected on how much her life had changed in just 1 year. Not only had she learned to manage her grocery budget, but she had also found a new purpose, a new source of income, and most importantly, a dear friend who was like the grandmother she never had. From struggling to buy groceries to becoming a published author, all because she was willing to accept help from a kind stranger in the produce section. Sarah couldn't help but think that sometimes the best things in life happen when your bank account is empty, but your mind is open. "You know what we should do to celebrate when the book is published?" Eleanor said, interrupting Sarah's thoughts. "What's that?" Eleanor's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Go grocery shopping and buy whatever we want without looking at a single price tag," Sarah laughed. "Deal. But something tells me we'll still check the prices anyway." "Old habits die hard," Eleanor agreed with a chuckle. "But that's why our readers and viewers love us. We're authentic." As Sarah walked home that evening, she passed by Save Mart and smiled at the memory of that first desperate shopping trip. She still used a budget for groceries, but now it was by choice rather than necessity. She had learned that living frugally wasn't about deprivation. It was about making smart choices so you could spend your money on what truly mattered. And what mattered most to Sarah wasn't the growing balance in her bank account, or even the success of her blog and YouTube channel. It was the friendship she had found with Eleanor, and the knowledge that together, they were helping others navigate their own financial challenges. Sarah looked up at the evening sky and made a silent promise to herself. No matter how successful she became, she would never forget the feeling of standing in that grocery store with only $78.43 to her name. That memory would keep her grounded and remind her of why she was doing this work in the first place. To help others who were standing where she once stood, wondering how to make it to the next paycheck with food on the table and hope in their hearts. In a world where everything seemed to be getting more expensive by the day, Sarah and Eleanor were proving that with a little knowledge, some careful planning, and a supportive community, anyone could learn to not just survive, but thrive on a budget. Key vocabulary repeated throughout. Budget. A plan for how to spend money. A limited amount of money to spend groceries, food and supplies bought from a grocery store stretch. To make something, like money, last longer, reusable. Something that can be used many times. Produce. Fresh fruits and vegetables in season. Fruits or vegetables that are naturally harvested at the current time of year, out of season. Fruits or vegetables that are not naturally harvested at the current time of year. Reduced section. An area in the store where items are sold at lower prices. Unit price. The cost of an item per unit, per ounce, pound, etc. Loyalty card. A card that gives special discounts to regular customers. Meal plan. A schedule of meals to prepare for a period of time. Impulse buy. Something purchased suddenly without planning. Digital coupons, electronic vouchers that provide discounts. Fixed income. A set amount of money received regularly, which does not increase. Make ends meet. To have just enough money to pay for necessities. Sale. A period when items are sold at reduced prices. Discount. A reduction in the usual price. Splurge. To spend more money than usual on something as a treat. Monetize. To earn money from an activity or content frugally, in a way that avoids unnecessary spending. And that's how Sarah turned her grocery budget struggle into a life-changing friendship and successful career. If you enjoyed this vocabulary-rich story and want to improve your English while learning practical life skills, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Story Driven English. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite budget shopping tip. We'd love to hear from you, and might feature your idea in an upcoming story. Share this video with friends who are learning English, or anyone who wants to save money on groceries. Until next time, remember that every challenge is an opportunity in disguise, just like it was for Sarah and Eleanor.